All right, we're trying it again. Hopefully, Patricia got the invite. Are we good? Do you hear anything from Patricia, Metro? See, this is like we're already at 12:06, and this is just, unacceptable. Did you see her?
So she stopped her broadcast. I'm texting her that you're live. Her.
All
Did we
right.
make it? Okay.
Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Listen, I know for aesthetic purposes, the network and the rest of the world would rather have Patricia on the big screen and my mug on the top right, but unfortunately, we can't do it.
That's okay.
Patricia, Merry Christmas.
Merry
How are
Christmas. I'm good. How are you?
you? Great.
Good to see your tree behind you. It's very nice.
Oh, yeah.
I saw your post of the big fat Greek Egyptian wedding.
Yeah.
Was that? Really cool.
That's right. That's right. How was everything for you? You had a good holiday?
I did. Went to see my sister and her kids, and it was a lot of fun. So,
Great.
And did you see the big news about the executive order signed the 22nd from Trump?
Yeah. Yes. That's obviously huge news. We're kind of, at least I am. I know people are very hopeful that it's going to be used against pedo abusers and folks like that. I'm just hoping it's not a hammer to punish member countries that voted against the Jerusalem resolution.
Right. Well, I haven't looked into each of the individuals, but Dan Gertler, I think is his name. He's Israeli, and he's one of the major offenders through his gold mines in the Congo. And if you've seen Clinton Cash, you have seen how mercenaries are hired by these billionaires to go in, destabilize a country, and allow the billionaire to then go in and exploit the natural resources. And in this case, it was the Congo. And, they've created millions of refugees and orphans, like people who have died horrific deaths. But he's one, and he's Israeli. So I think, I think that for all the mistakes that he's going to inevitably make, and anybody would in that position, I mean, you just can't get everything right. That's not humanly possible. But I also think he seems to be responsive to when people push back on this stuff. And I think he got the message loud and clear on Israel, but he still has to play out some of what the diplomatic stuff that they've already sort of planned out. I don't know.
I think, listen, I agree with you. I think our system and the current state of affairs is so corrupt, and it's in such shambles that there is no immediate, magic bullet or wave of a wand, and he's not gonna be able to. It's probably gonna take generations
to
get us
undo.
out. To unwind what's been done since the Kennedy assassination. So I'm trying to give him every benefit of the doubt. Stuff like the Jerusalem thing and the love fest with the Zionists. And that stuff is excruciating to me, and it really makes me aggravated.
Yeah.
And I was watching Paul Craig Roberts on the Richie Allen show, and he said that this was a move to appease the Israel lobby, because without them, he's dead. That's what Paul Craig Roberts said.
The move about Jerusalem was...
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he said that he needs them to survive, to hang on, because he's under assault from every which way, every faction, and this was a move to hold on to power. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but at the same time, people just had enough.
Yeah.
People have had enough of the Zionist aggression, and you know, co-opting the United States military to serve Zionist interests in the Middle East.
Yeah.
We've had enough of it.
I think he's gotten that
people
message. Yeah, I think
people aren't scared to talk about it.
even some of his most ardent supporters too, Albert, like the ones who have been with him all along, are really angry about this. So it's interesting to watch that dynamic play out in terms of, and he has specifically asked for feedback on this stuff. And I don't know if you saw the same white hats that went to him with the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton election fraud information, and the whole, Bill Binney and all that group of guys.
Yes.
They wrote a letter to him about Hezbollah, because that's a whole other con game apparently that's going on with Iran, and he's completely misguided on Iran. And I don't pretend to understand the Hezbollah thing well enough to, state anything with authority, but at the same time, there are people out there who are communicating directly with him and very consistent with the public's opinion as you've described. So I find that also very encouraging.
It's a huge paradigm shift, and it's not, I understand the whole Q thing, and it's not easy to deprogram a society that's been consistently brainwashed for 5 decades, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, the Islamic fascism phony threat isn't real. It's all a big hoax. So we have to get them to stop thinking about Islamic fascism as the leading world threat, existential threat to every nation, and kind of replace that with Zionism, which is, at the biggest threat we have going. Because look, if they have their way, they want to take down Iran, right?
Mm-hmm. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, the war with Iran is their top on their list.
Yes.
So they want to take down Iran. They want to annex southern Lebanon for its water resources. And each time they've occupied southern Lebanon, they've been driven out by Hezbollah. Hezbollah's obviously funded and armed by Syria and Iran. So getting rid of Syria, getting rid of Iran, now Hezbollah is vulnerable to be, taken out by the Israelis, and that's what the plan is. And
so that's the whole con, the supposed terrorist threat from Iran. Were they ever terrorist? Was Hezbollah ever a terrorist group, or?
Well, I mean, listen, people like to change the meaning of terrorism around. When they blew up the Marine barracks in Lebanon, that is not a terrorist act. They're combat soldiers in a foreign land. If targeting soldiers,
attacking you,
soldiers is terrorism, then everything is terrorism, right? I mean, any attack. Right.
Okay.
So
that's helpful, because I think a lot of people really don't understand sort of the, really who's behind Hezbollah. I didn't know they were backed by Syria and Russia.
Syria and Iran.
Or Iran, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And indirectly by
Russia.
Through because that's who supplies Syria and Iran, right?
Right.
With a lot of weapons.
Right.
So, I mean, listen, it's this whole Sunni Shia divide, and Turkey looks like it's switching sides.
Yeah.
Which is very significant, because they were in the Sunni Gulf Arab, Saudi Arabia, Egypt camp, and now Turkey. No wonder they don't want to be an ally anymore. We tried to the CIA sponsored a coup, rid of Erdogan.
Yep.
And there's communiques that refer to Erdogan as an enemy, and he sees all this stuff, and he's like, well, what am I, nuts?
They used him too to get into Syria. I mean, so much of the ISIS terrorists that were smuggled in and all those weapons went through Turkey in those World Food Organization trucks run by the U.S. that were, CIA controlled. So, well, did you see Eric Schmidt, stepping down abruptly as CEO of Google? And it's since come out that he was on the, let me see where it is here. He was part of the Skolkovo Foundation Board, which this is a Russian-driven group that were attempting to bring nuclear technology, among other things, to Russia. And they partnered with a bunch of American companies, one of which included Google and Eric Schmidt. And it was through that organization that Eric Schmidt made nuclear technology accessible to North Korea. His daughter wrote a blog about a trip they made last December with, it was, who was it? Hutchison, Governor Hutchison, I can't remember now. But
Asa Hutchison?
That sounds right. And that's
Arkansas.
Yes, that sounds right. So they went last December, I believe it was, or November, and she just sort of wrote about the trip without commenting too much on the politics of it or the details of the visit. But that was theoretic. That's what I understand was the sort of closing transaction for all of this to be wrapped up. So he's been outed for, his role in arming Russia and North Korea with nuclear technology.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get more deep state than Eric Schmidt. That guy is a real asshole. And another thing, did you see the Sean Hannity? He had a great little tutorial on all the scandals, the fusion GPS, the uranium one, the DNC primary, the IT DNC Awan gate, and he had all these flow charts, except for the hysterics about.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
Bernie the socialist and Putin being hostile or something. Yeah. He's still full of shit, except he's right on that. I mean, we'll give him credit there that he's bringing the people up to speed on what's going on with the Hitlery, Clinton, Bush, Obama cabal. I think it's very useful, and I'm holding out hope for QAnon to be a real white hat and not just some kind of disinformation stuff, because we all want to believe in it because it's really good stuff that the ultimate agenda is to bring down all these people and the corruption that's been entrenched in this government for decades, the permanent government that really runs the show. Yeah. And hope it's just the mixed signals drive us nuts. Like one step forward, two steps back with this president. It's really excruciating. But I guess given where we are, we have to kind of just at least be a little bit more patient. And I'm going to give him another quarter.
Well, along those lines, if you think about it, again, he's given us many signals that he wants public feedback and that he's fought really hard to keep his Twitter account and remain active on social media throughout. And I think, again, just as we saw with the election, it wasn't until we all collectively took things into our own hands that, and fought back that we got what we needed. And I think that he's communicated. Go ahead.
No. I remember when Chuck Todd wanted to give Hitlery Florida, and he was like, well, this is going to happen, and then Pennsylvania and Ohio will follow suit, and Hitlery should just be on the road to. And I wanted to break my TV, and I was going crazy. And he was trying to, prematurely, I think it was 8:30 p.m. When Chuck Todd wanted to give Hitlery Florida and call the election for her, and I was going nuts. and then like half an hour later, it went from depression to jubilation,
right?
Because he was clearly going to win Florida. He was neck and neck in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Yeah, that was awesome. But now that he's in there, it's not going to be easy. But we do have high hopes, and let's just say that he's got his work cut out for him.
He definitely does, and we need to not only make sure that we provide the support where we think it's appropriate, where we think he's doing the right things, be very clear about the fact that we think he's doing the right thing and give him, acknowledge that. But, also we need to push back where he's got stuff wrong. We know he's been insulated by hostile actors, and we don't quite know who those people are. And I think I was reading about Judge Janine had a meeting with him recently about Mueller, and apparently he stormed out of the room angry. And my interpretation of that was not that he was angry at Judge Janine. It was that he was angry he discovered he was being betrayed by someone else. And I don't buy that Mueller flipped. I mean, he may have, but I do not buy it. And I think it's more likely that Trump set him up to hang himself. But I think we have a role here to play in terms of not only disseminating what's going on and the details and help people understand what is happening, but to make very clear and be very loud about where we think he's wrong. We can't expect him to get everything right, and we just have to make sure we stay engaged enough to apply the pressure where appropriate, I think.
Yeah, I think getting rid of Priebus and Spicer was good because obviously they were the leaks, right? So, that was a good move.
Yeah.
The generals, I'm still kind of iffy about.
I agree.
I don't know. Mattis has a very kind of barbaric reputation. I just wish that they would end the bombings in Yemen. We just found out they conducted 120 airstrikes last year. U.S. airstrikes, not Saudi. These are These are American missions. So, that's not getting any kind of play at all because the world knows that Yemen is being starved.
Yeah.
Ports are blocked. They're under a blockade. They don't have fresh water. There's a famine. There's, they've already had like almost 1 million casualties.
Well, and the bombing, they're striking hospitals, schools, all homes. I mean, these are not military strikes. It's genocide. I mean, there's just no other appropriate term for it.
Right.
It's infuriating.
So that's what that's the dichotomy here. That's why I can't really pump up Trump like I'd like to because of the bonehead policy maneuvers in the Middle East. And I mean, if I knew, even if he's pulling a Putin and ingratiating himself to the hawks in the military security complex to gain their trust so he can stick a shiv in their back, it's still killing people. So I people are still dying because of these policies,
right?
And these, the continued military aggression. So it's not something I can be behind. I mean, if the ultimate result is he does, he's doing this just to play them or placate them until he can remove them and find out who's who, etc. Okay, but I still can't go along with any kind of genocide or military aggression. That's not what we're about.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly how we should proceed. I mean, I am really disturbed by it, and I'm not sure we're, how responsive he's going to be that there, especially with Mattis being such an aggressor himself. I really am concerned about
the Mattis. I love killing Arabs, Mattis.
Yeah, he's really disturbing. But I think, again, there's movement. There's clear movement in the right direction in key areas like the executive order. And so,
well, let's see how it's implemented. Right. I mean, we have Ben Fulford saying there's 10,000 sealed indictments. I'm seeing 9,000 sealed indictments. First of all, where are they convening all these grand juries?
Yeah.
Okay. And who's staffed? Do they have the staffing to conduct all these grand juries?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem realistic.
Well, remember though, a single a single indictment can name multiple people and multiple counts.
Okay.
So it's not one indictment per person per crime. So you could, for example, Brian Joyce, a former state senator here in Massachusetts, was just arrested a couple of weeks ago on a 113 count indictment. So that was just one indictment, but it covered racketeering, extortion, money laundering. You know, it was a whole long string of charges. So that could explain why it's 10,000. You know, the number seems so big, but it would have maybe, you know, there are multiple people on each indictment that have multiple offenses. So
Do you follow Ben?
I don't.
I mean, it's I watch it for like entertainment purposes, and his stuff on Asia is accurate. He's based in Tokyo.
Okay.
So he's the whole White Dragon Society thing is real. There is a White Dragon Society, and he does have contacts in there. But he was saying something very interesting. Maybe it's fantasy, I don't know. But he's saying that the bloodline families that run, you know, the G7 and the Western world are in full panic mode, and they're trying to sue for peace. They want to keep the fiat money system, and they want to keep the Federal Reserve private. I don't know.
Well,
I don't think there's any way we can live with these people, because we've seen the level of psychopathy and the whole truth and reconciliation and all that other stuff. I don't know how it's going to work, because they have no problem, you know, slaughtering folks and destroying nations by the millions. So how can we, you know, do business with these people?
Yeah. It's I like you said, I think it's one of those things that's just going to take a long time to undo. There's no easy answers for sure. But the freezing, remember too, the Basel III compliance that QAnon referenced a couple weeks ago? No. Okay, so one of the late night posts that went up was about having all of the European banks under what's called Basel III compliance, which allows them to freeze assets and track them all. So that they became fully compliant just very recently. And my understanding was that was in preparation for this freezing of assets under the Magnitsky Act that Trump signed on the 22nd. So, you know, I have, that makes me confident that that's really happening in terms of freezing those assets. And again, it was one prominent Israeli was on that list, which is, I think, a sign that, you know, again, he's giving a little bit here and there so that he can make progress in other areas. And, you know,
well, that's our hope. I mean, people can't get they cannot wrap their minds around the fact that there is a pedo state entrenched in this country, that the intelligence services are involved.
Well, they set it up. They pretty
CIA, yeah. FBI,
yeah,
and local PD. Look at the Corey Haim interview that they lost for 20 years, so or whatever, 2 decades or a decade plus, so the statute of limitations could run out, and then they miraculously find the interview where he does name names.
Right.
So
it's incredible.
Listen, yeah, you know, once you realize that the whole system is tainted from the top down, you know,
yeah.
It's going to take a lot. I mean, because let's just put it this way. When you have unlimited resources, okay, that these people have, and you can buy whoever you need, that money is the root of all corruption.
Yeah.
It's as easy as that.
Well, and just FYI, I had with the hope that if perchance it should work out, I sent a message to General Flynn, Michael Flynn, asking him for an interview. And while I fully expected him to decline, he did respond and declined very graciously. But he also mentioned that things are really far worse than any of us know. And he's
Yeah.
been following me on Twitter for a while, so I think he has a sense of what I know. And I was just like, oh, wow. So even coming directly from him, it's really kind of puts it all in perspective that this is not going to be, no one person can do this. It really is going to take all of us playing some role here to make it happen.
Do you think he's going to give testimony against Trump?
No, not for a moment.
That's what everyone thinks is going to happen.
That's what the mainstream media wants us to believe, but I don't believe it for a minute. Right.
I would love to know if he got a pedo list from the Dutch.
Yeah.
That would be my first question to him, because if he has these names, if he knows who we know a lot of them. We already know who many of them are.
Yep.
Schumer, Pelosi, Hillary, Bubba, Kane.
Sibel Edmonds has named many of them, dozens of them.
Graham, John McCain, Feinstein. There's a healthy list. Al Franken. And there's many more.
Well, Al Franken ran the original brownstone. That was named after his brownstone, right?
But what's his name? Barney Frank.
Oh, Barney Frank.
Remember
Al Franken versus Barney Frank was the. Yeah.
So, listen. I have no joy in telling people that our government is riddled with pedophiles.
Yeah.
It's deeply embarrassing. It's shameful that we're the leaders of the free. Well, we're not. We're not the leaders of the free world anymore.
Yeah, we are controlled by
that moniker now resides east.
Yeah.
In Moscow with Putin. Okay, Putin is the leader of the free world. So it's unfortunate, but we have to deal with this reality. We have child rapists ruling over us. They've incorporated into a system of control. They have control files on celebrities, on judges, on state senators, on federal people in Congress to do whatever they want. And they have unlimited resources to buy influence and infiltrate any group that they want. Yeah. And Paul Craig Roberts just said flat out, Mossad has infiltrated the CIA. So,
I would believe it because if just thinking back to what Sibel Edmonds found when she was doing her analysis for the FBI and discovered that the FBI had been infiltrated by Mossad and Turkish spies, and instead of ridding themselves of the Turkish and Mossad spies, the FBI decided to railroad Sibel Edmonds. So the idea that we have any control over that is absurd, because clearly if they're going to, silence it, they went all the way to the Supreme Court to silence her about what she discovered.
And Rebecca's satanic, yes. And there is an occult aspect to this with the Luciferian and, it depends on how deep you want to go with the Thamala, Kabbalists that are, sex magic orgies. And it is otherworldly and it's beyond disturbing, but we have testimony from people that have witnessed these rituals.
Liz McKean uncovered the elite satanic pedophile network that the BBC covered up for decades.
Yeah.
And
forget about it. The UK is pedo central. As bad as it is here in the United States, it's easily 3, 4, 5 times worse in the UK.
It's an older practice there, I think. Yeah. It dates back centuries, it seems. But this was all documented. It's been acknowledged that Jimmy Savile did in fact brutalize hundreds of children, some as young as 2 years old. Sir Ted Heath was part of that. The list is extraordinary. And this woman, so the CEO of the BBC at the time of the cover up, when he got exposed by Liz McKean for covering all this up, he left and went to become the CEO of New York Times, you may remember, back in 2012.
Yeah,
and
that's a perfect landing spot for a pedophile.
Yeah, and a pedophile cover-upper too.
Right.
So, especially when it's elite satanic pedophilia, you really gotta make sure you have the right person. But we know this is all documented. It is not.
It's in. Remember the WikiLeaks?
Yeah.
There's a Moloch reference. In the WikiLeaks.
Yes. Like if it's not real, why would they be referencing it? Yeah.
Yeah, something about chicken and Molochs and chicken.
Sacrifice a chicken to Moloch, or I remember that.
Yes.
Meaning a baby. Chickens are little boys. Chickens are little boys.
Yeah, that's how sick these people are. I mean, like the whole Podesta, HRC, Moloch, Bohemian Grove.
Spirit cooking, the whole thing.
Spirit. People are like, oh, you people are nuts. You really think this is really happening? Of course it's really happening.
I don't think it. I know it.
Yeah. I mean, look at all the references. Look at, you could cite all these different sources that are telling us it's happening. We have testimony. We have accounts from people going back 4 decades that they were they're using military bases around the world to traffic children.
Yep. That's what the Fat Leonard investigation was about. And I don't know if you knew or saw, but Trump has reopened that investigation. It implicated hundreds of military personnel for trafficking children on foreign bases. Yes. And it was shut down by the State Department under Clinton. So that's being reopened. My sons and I watched the most recent, which movie was that, you guys? The Kingsman. The second one. They mock us. It's just incredible. As part of the film, I don't know if you've seen it. They have this recruit kill the guy that recruited him and eat a hamburger made from his flesh. Sort of how, but it's just like, we know that in fact does occur, yet they're putting it up on the screen as though it's like, ooh, look at that, wouldn't that be gross? It's like, it's more than gross, it's real. It's like what they really do. So just all of it disgusts me.
Jake Morphonis is on this. He goes into the whole Thelema, Aleister Crowley cult, which is what I think what appeals to the Podesta DC cabal is kind of into that whole Aleister Crowley. They have like these sex magic orgies where the whole idea is to impregnate.
Well, that's how Barbara Bush was conceived, right?
Yeah, impregnate a virgin, right? And then 9 months later, have another ritual where you sacrifice the baby, consume the flesh, and drink its blood. These are the people,
running
that are on the highest echelon in government. John Podesta, who was the chief of staff to 2 presidents and a kingmaker in this country for 25 years.
Yeah.
So, and his brother was the most powerful lobbyist in DC for 2 decades.
Yep.
So these are the type of people that are running the show, and they are just scum.
Yeah. Rebecca asked what's being reopened. It's the Fat Leonard investigation into child sex trafficking among military personnel stationed overseas. So that it's been a huge problem. It started, I think, in Kosovo, the case that's being investigated now with the war in Serbia and all of that. So, but there was something else that happened recently too that I can't remember what it was. But did you see what happened to Julian Assange's account? Well, the U.S. Navy sent out the tweet, and then there were a couple of accounts that there's been this one, I don't know if it's a person or a bot or whatever, keeps imitating his Twitter account. and we keep having to report it. And one of those accounts was suspended when all of this went down. So it's not clear what's going on, but they did report that his physical situation is unchanged, but he's under heightened surveillance now. So I don't know what that's about, and trying to figure it out.
Trump's cutting 200 million in UN aid,
I saw that
for next year.
Yep.
And Nikki Haley, that grotesque, said that there's way too many inefficiencies and overspending in the UN. And it has nothing to do with the Jerusalem.
No.
Vote.
No, I
Absolutely
think that this was their excuse.
Nothing.
Remember I said,
Yeah.
I think they played this card in order to back out of the UN. But they played it badly.
I don't understand that. No country gets more benefit from the UN than we do.
Yeah.
So, and they want to set up this straw man UN as a boogeyman, as a bad guy.
I don't get it.
Bad outfit, when it's a tool of American hegemony.
Right.
So it's just nonsense. People are just so sick of the nonsense.
Yeah. I just, again, I try and put myself in the position of being, when he makes a move like that, he has to deal with like the public fallout and how the MSM messages things. And then, so I think.
Why do this Jerusalem? He had the Hitlery terrorists, DNC, Mueller, all on their heels. The whole Russiagate fabrication is blowing up in their faces. It transitioned from Russiagate to FBI gate. Instead of Trump being the focus, we had Strzok and McCabe and Comey and Mueller,
right,
and that Orr guy and his girlfriend or
his wife, who worked for Fusion GPS, who produced the PP dossier.
People are all under scrutiny. Everything's going well, and then he just pulls this Jerusalem thing out of his ass. Why?
I think he got bad advice from Jared Kushner, who brought in Dina Powell. I think he got sabotaged. I think he got sabotaged.
It makes no sense.
I agree.
It makes no sense. He had all the momentum, and he had these people on the run, and it was all going well, and then he's just like, you know what? Let me sabotage myself and unite the whole world against me, and enrage people that are in the peace movement.
Do you think it could have been? I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, and I'm not trying to defend, because I totally disagree with what he did, and I disagree with him on Yemen, and I think the tax thing is like, it really doesn't get us anywhere, to be honest. No. But but at the same time, do you think he could have thrown that out there too to distract people with that while he did all this other stuff, like with the Magnitsky Act? I don't know if it was maybe a way.
I don't know. I don't know either. It's vexing. It's terribly vexing, and hopefully there's a method to his madness. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, I was never a Trump guy. Okay, I voted Jill Stein. There was no way. Obviously you guys know I'm a former ex-burner, but after what happened in Philadelphia and his capitulation, and I can never go back to Bernie because that was just ridiculous. But I voted Stein, and on election night, my only thought process was anyone but Hillary.
Yeah.
That's
how I felt.
If it was Trump,
I was good with that.
I was a rabid Trump supporter. November 8th.
Yeah.
The night of November 8th, I was a rabid Trump supporter.
I was cheering him on too.
Right. I mean, listen, that was literally one of the greatest nights of my life.
Yeah, I agree.
Sad, I guess, but at the same time, it was very satisfying because I was such an outspoken anti-Hitlery advocate that it kind of rewarded me for my efforts. I felt like, I had a stake in this.
Right.
And I was trying to tell people, whatever you do not vote Hillary.
Right.
She is the devil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Better to not vote at all.
Don't vote at all. Vote. If you're going to protest vote with Trump, go ahead.
Yeah.
Cast your protest vote. Or join me in voting for Jill Stein,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I fingers crossed. There's a lot that's possible. And I think even if we stopped where we are right now, to be honest, Albert, we've made a lot of progress, a ton of progress. If nothing else more came of this. So people seem to really understand that the world is not as we believe it, and we have to be highly skeptical of everything. And a lot, you know, on that with North Korea and that psyop, I still am learning what's going on there. I read through Eric Schmidt's daughter's blog, and I learned some really interesting things that I didn't know. And one of which was that they allowed everyone to bring their cameras. They couldn't bring a phone or other device into the country, but they could bring their cameras and they could take pictures of just about anything except for when they went to the residence of Kim Jong, is it Un? I don't know.
Yeah.
Which that was interesting to me. And another thing she talked about was that none of the buildings are heated. And it gets down, she said it was like 10, 15 degrees in the sun during the day, and nothing is heated. Can you imagine? Even in the big, beautiful hotels and everything, she said, the thing you notice most is how tough those people are. And
Yeah, absolutely. But listen, I think once the whole matrix system comes down, you know, people are still, it's been pounded into our heads. I mean, you know, the nightly news, everything they're telling you in terms of foreign policy is a lie.
Right.
In terms of monetary policy, it's a lie. Once people understand that the system is based on looting and a redistribution of as much wealth as possible into the hands of these, you know, it's not even 1%. It's like the top 1.1%.
Yeah.
Right. So once people realize that these people do not care about you, they don't care about me, they don't care about infrastructure, they don't care about the standard of living of most Americans. It's all about accumulating as much wealth for them as possible. And
none is ever enough.
Crumbling highways and bridges and your kids' education, it doesn't matter to them. We're just like chattel, and you know, it's their world. We're just existing in it to serve them.
Well, if you listen to, have you ever seen the original interview with Ronald Bernard, the Dutch financier? Yeah. He's an Illuminati banker who left that world. If you haven't seen it, you really have to watch. I think it's like 30 minutes long. It's not terribly long, but wow, it will blow your mind, because he was a banker to these guys, and he confirms the whole Illuminati thing, the child sacrifice. That's why he left. He could not bring himself to do that. And
when he left, they didn't just let him leave. They kidnapped him and tortured him and kept him detained until he was conditioned, and they made it very clear that he couldn't share any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Before he was allowed to go.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. They rope you in, and then they want you to get into the club. You have to kill a child.
Right. And once you've done that, you're like, how are you ever to explain that to anyone? There's no backing out at that point.
You know, listen, the war between good and evil is real. It's not a fairy tale. No. These people do exist, and they have to be dealt with. I mean, they've made leaps and strides. And this is not new. This has been going on for centuries, if not millennia, that these people, these certain families have existed for centuries, if not millennia. The Windsors, you know, the Vatican, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers.
Yep.
You know, these people are evil.
Somebody pulled up a picture, which I thought was really interesting, of the Pope kissing the hand of David Rockefeller while he was surrounded by Rothschilds. It was like, wow, that speaks volumes. The Pope kissing his hand.
The Rockefellers are not Jewish, am I right?
Neither are the Rothschilds.
Well, technically they call themselves Jewish,
but they never converted completely. Apparently, like I've seen a whole bunch of research on that.
Yeah, they're from the Caucasus.
Yeah,
as most of the people that are currently living in Israel that are called themselves Israelis are from that area. They've migrated from that area. But I thought that the Rockefellers were not Jewish, and I understand that even non-Jews, if you're in a temple, you wear a yarmulke. I get it. I wore a yarmulke for several bar mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs. But I don't understand the whole kissing Rockefeller's hand thing. He's not a Holocaust survivor. That makes no sense.
It doesn't, unless you are willing to accept that, in fact, these are the guys like pulling all of the strings. Although it it goes against, though, a lot of what I've seen is that it's the Vatican is sort of the modern day manifestation of the Holy Roman Empire, and that's where the center of power resides. I mean, I don't, but then with the Pope kissing, maybe it's because those are the bankers lending to the Vatican, I don't know, to build out all of their, buy the land and build the churches and all of that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, like I said, I think the Rothschilds, the Windsors, and the Vatican are an unholy trinity, and I don't, if you're going to go down, nothing against Catholics. A lot of my friends are Catholics, but in terms of the Vatican, you could just go down a laundry list of horrific decisions. I mean, the Crusades, sanctioning the transatlantic slave trade, putting, horrible treatment of women, and obviously, the pinnacle is, slavery is pretty bad. Pedophilia, institutional pedophilia for millennia within the Catholic Church and the Vatican.
That's their official position. Is Francis, wants to protect the pedophiles. He's been very clear about that.
Yeah.
It's just,
and it's been going on forever.
Yeah, I grew up. I went through confirmation, like I did the whole thing. So I grew up as a member of that church, and just am disgusted beyond belief by it.
And read the Jesuit code. It's like, what?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Trish?
I've heard people. I haven't read it myself, but I've seen analysis of it.
It's like barbaric. It's like basically they'll murder, kill whoever is against the Pope, and festoon in their intestines, and it's nuts. It's like crazy stuff. But and what's with the whole Jesuit CIA connection? Have you ever looked into that?
No, I've only just started seeing a ton of stuff about the Jesuits because interestingly. My dad went to a Jesuit college, and he always talked about them as being intellectuals, and that's how I always saw them. But and I don't think he ever knew what the history that is now being uncovered. But it's just such a I had no idea all this other stuff behind that community. So
it seems like the West is in decay. It's been tainted.
Yeah.
Because you don't have this pedophilia problem with the Eastern Orthodox Church, right? Like in Turkey, in Greece, Russia, even Latvia, and some of the Eastern Orthodox Church. You don't have this issue of pedophilia.
I've never heard of it anyway.
No. And the Vatican, Rothschild central bankers, their sphere of influence over, Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, it all fits in. And, we're all hoping and praying that Trump can take a wrecking ball to this, institutionalized cancer of central bankers and pederasts in Hollywood, and the Weinsteins and the Brett Ratners of the world get flushed down the toilet. So, but it's a big issue, a really huge issue, and it's not going to happen overnight. This problem didn't get created overnight. We won't get rid of it overnight, but hopefully, little by little, especially, it already started in Hollywood,
Right,
right?
right. Oh,
We've
did you
already,
see too? Speaking of Hollywood, there now someone's made the connection between Amal Clooney. I don't know if you saw the QAnon post that said there was a daughter that's an attorney whose job it is to launder a bunch of this money in the rat lines. And
Mhm.
it wasn't clear, you know, it was sort of just a breadcrumb. Well, it looks like that attorney may be Amal Clooney, who is a human rights attorney. And I don't know if you
Oh,
remember at the time that she married George Clooney, she was working on the retrieval of certain antiquities for Egypt, I believe it was. And
right, looting.
yes, and it looks like she's connected not only to Hillary Clinton, but she was also connected to Julian Assange and Eric Schmidt. So people are saying she's like a plant to, you know, as she's part of this whole scheme and cabal, and that her role was. I also have from Randy Turner apparently says that she's George Clooney's beard, which I don't know, but he's
No,
supposedly gay and
he's a clown.
yeah,
George Clooney's a clown. He wants to make a movie about the white hats in Syria, like
the
there's
white
some kind of
helmets, yeah, yeah.
white helmets in
He's
Syria, like
CIA. He's
yeah,
totally
like they're
CIA.
like there's some good guys when they're actually terrorists. I mean, he's buying this hook, line, and sinker. I'm surprised that Damon and Affleck are a little bit more politically attuned to what's going on. I'm hoping they talk some sense into the guy. But you know what I found interesting was I heard a recording of Diana before she was killed, and she was discussing it. It was an MI6 tapping her lines. Somehow they leaked it, and she was talking about how her most pressing concerns were staying alive, and she was fearing that they were going to try to kill her in some kind of auto accident. Okay. Now, and then you had Mohammed Al Fayed, who put his finger right on Prince Philip, and he said Prince Philip killed my son, and he killed Lady Diana. And there's speculation that a couple of things, that she was pregnant. God forbid she have a half Egyptian child. That's
Right,
just,
right.
and also that she was about to be an advocate for the Palestinian cause. So the Windsors and the Rothschilds
Had to
were,
put the kibosh on that. Yeah.
yeah, they were like, you know what, she's got to go. So we had,
Incredible.
yeah, just and who doesn't love Diana? I mean,
Right.
have to put up with that monstrous family, right?
Yeah. Well, it looks
So,
like I just saw something emerge about, I don't know if you remember the polo player with whom she had an affair.
right.
That
Who looks just like
Harry,
Harry.
yeah,
Yeah,
Harry
yeah,
is his
yeah.
son, and he's German, I guess. This guy that,
So are the Windsors.
well,
So are the
do you remember the
right.
Halloween costume where he had the Nazi
The
patch?
uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
the Nazi uniform.
yeah,
He got all kinds of flags. Yeah, the Windsors are German,
yeah.
folks. They're not even English. So, and they had this footage of Queen Elizabeth and the royals like doing like Heil Hitler's family video where they're like doing the Nazi salute.
Well, the
It
one,
was big.
which was the king that abdicated and married the divorcee. Now I can't.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
met
I know
with
who you're talking.
Hitler. They were,
Yeah,
received very warmly and were clearly thrilled to be meeting with him in the photos.
yeah.
So, I mean, that alliance is, and supposedly Hitler is a member of the royal family, was a member of the royal family, and was just installed in that position. He was, their puppet leader.
And I've heard he's also a Rothschild. So that.
Oh, okay. Maybe the
it's
connection was through the Rothschilds then. I mistaked it. But
hey, folks, if you can, share this video. That would help us.
yeah, definitely. There was something else, too, that came up. Was it Mal Clooney, and then there was something else. Shoot, I can't remember now. But
Well, can we go back to Mueller?
yeah,
Yeah, I think this guy's a snake in the grass. I don't trust him one bit.
I agree.
And he's stacked his whole investigation team with Hitlery terrorists.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're all Hitlery terrorists, every single one of them. I think one guy, one member of his team gave a contribution to a Republican. The rest are all DNC through and through. So, and then we had Strzok, who was on the team.
Yeah, both the Clinton email investigation and the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. He was leading both of those.
Yes, he's in the intersection of everything. He interviewed Hitlery and Huma, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He did the interview, did he not? And he also did the editing on the final findings,
right,
for COVID,
right,
where he changed it from gross negligence
to extreme carelessness. Was it? Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Listen, it's just too much. We can't take this. The American people are dumb, yes, but they're not that dumb, and we can't swallow something like that. I mean, we cannot. Hitler needs to go down. I mean, this is the thing. She needs to go down. Obama needs to go down. The Bushes need to go down, and we can finally hit the reset button.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I mean, it's a good start. That would be a great start, taking down that cabal.
Well, but again, we see things are heating up too, because it's now been determined that the death of that billionaire couple in Canada.
Yeah. What happened with that?
Originally, the police tried to say that they were investigating it as a murder-suicide or perhaps a double suicide, and the children were like, don't even go there. They had a grandchild on the way, and one of the daughters has a wedding planned for the spring. And they're like, there is no way these two committed suicide. And so they finally relented and abandoned that theory and are now going with homicide. But there was no signs of forced entry, which makes it clear it was a professional job. I mean, how else would that have? They hanged both of them with belts, and their jackets were pulled down behind their backs. That's a professional job. Then, the doctor, that's still being ruled a suicide. The one who wrote the scathing email on WikiLeaks about what was happening in Haiti and the, complete looting.
They're killing everybody. Listen, if it's up to the Clintons, they will try to murder their way out of this.
Well, that's what I'm worried about, is all these people dying. It's just like, they need to be in jail. Like, I don't understand why they have not been arrested. For the life of me.
Here's the way. I was saying this like weeks after the election, when they were trying to foment all this discontent and revolution to supplant the results of the election with the Soroses and the pink hats and all that nonsense and all the parades, all the demonstrations. They were trying to foment a
civil war. Yeah.
So, I was saying, you know what? Let's get like 13 SEAL teams, snatch them up, spirit them to Guantanamo Bay, and to await trial, because we certainly have enough information on them to
more than enough. Yeah.
The Bush, Obama, Clintons included.
Well,
and
like you though, I've seen all over the place. People are like, I can be patient, but you need to make sure you're proving to me, meaning Trump, that this is happening for real.
It's moving forward.
Yeah.
We need to see signs that
hard evidence
is moving forward. Sealed indictments in the thousands, it's great. But if we don't see some kind of material evidence that this process is moving forward, it's all going to go into the whole bullshit, and people are going to get demoralized, like myself, and say this is all hooey, a bunch of bullshit. It would be like a Trump disinformation campaign, kind of intelligence on his side to keep people on board. But if it doesn't materialize into something significant, then what's the point?
Right. And people really want to see arrests of high level players. They are not going to settle for, taking out the middleman. Yeah. It's like, no, right. These are the people who have driven all of this violence and gruesome destruction all over the world. They absolutely, we're talking about serial criminals that have not only looted trillions of dollars, but they're responsible for the deaths of millions. And it's just like, you cannot tell me that there is any justice in allowing somebody like that to walk just because they might be fined or pay you should not be able to buy your way out of, justice. It's just, it's wrong. And it undermines the entire principle that I think people like you and me, and even the vast majority of Trump supporters, are expecting to see upheld. Everyone should be held at the same standard.
Well, we have the best government money can buy, right?
It's true.
That's basically what we're looking at, and hopefully that this will come to some kind of positive resolution. But we do need to see the big fish. Whales, if you will, not the fish, the whales.
Yeah.
We want the whales to go down. We need to see something really happen to Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein. We need to see him get put away.
Right.
For whatever, even a couple of years.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I mean, even
somebody I don't know.
The Weinsteins of the world, the Brett Ratners, these people that think that their position gives them some kind of right to do whatever they want, live above the law and any kind of acceptable standards of conducting themselves in a civilized manner is out the window because, hey, it's our movie. You want to be in my movie? You got to get naked and jump in my bed. It's like, we understand that the competition is there and people will do things to get that opportunity. They will have sex with a movie producer to get a role in a movie.
Yeah.
We know that, but that doesn't make it right. And it doesn't mean we have to perpetuate that kind of behavior.
Right.
So, there has to be consequences for these guys who think they can live above the standards of norm for the rest of us. It's not, there has to be accountability.
I agree. I think that's very clear that what I've seen anyway among the people that I work with on both Twitter and Facebook. So, speaking of which, I'm going to try again tomorrow morning on Gab. I'm going to spend the morning there and just try and get to know it. And if anybody wants to join me, I'll follow you back. I'm under Tricia Dishes. And I don't know if you saw last Monday when those rules were implemented, the new ones by Twitter, probably a dozen people that I know had their accounts suspended almost immediately and had no idea what they had done wrong. And so,
what is this?
So these are new rules that Twitter is using as reasons for suspending accounts, but they monitor your traffic to other sites now and will suspend your account based on which sites you visit. And if they think that you're pursuing fake news, I'm not kidding. Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is.
That is just crazy.
So I'm moving to Gab. I'm going to try and, it takes practice. And I think the more of us that are there together, sharing and trying it out, the faster we'll learn it. And then I think what we do is organize a mass move, together. And that's how we can make it happen. I would love to see that. And
and we're gonna be going. We're gonna do Monday through Friday in January, folks. We'll do this from noon to 1 Monday through Friday.
Right.
So that'll be very good, and we can stay on top of everything. The week thing is great, but there's too much happening. Things are moving really quickly, and it kind of necessitates being on daily.
Yeah, and then I'm also working on Trello boards so that I can share them as a link along with the broadcast. And if you haven't used Trello before, you can post articles in columns and also rows, and you can give descriptions and things like that, so that if you're interested in a particular topic, for example, Yemen, I'll be putting the articles all under that column, and you can, at your leisure, explore the content that's out there. And also I get raw data sometimes, like WikiLeaks links or stuff from CIA or FBI.gov. So I'll be trying to populate that so that people can go back to it as they wish and sort of catch up. And the most recent stuff will be at the top. So if you're just looking to see the, what's happened in the last day or two, you can do that.
Emil, we're in the Eastern time zone. Eastern United States. So what is it? EST?
Eastern Standard Time is what we're on right now.
Right. So that's what we're on, and we're going to be on 5 days a week. And basically,
we'll be back next Tuesday because of New Year's. But then we'll start Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll do Tuesday through Friday, right? Is that
right? Right. So that's what we'll do. We got a lot. We got a lot to go over, obviously, from what's happening. Last thing on QAnon, Patricia. You've done an analysis of the QAnon kind of breadcrumbs and stuff that's actually happened, and you have you see the time-stamped comments, and what's your best argument for QAnon in terms of stuff that's actually been predicted, that's come to pass?
The most recent thing was the Eric Schmidt resignation. I can't remember the post, but the day before that happened, QAnon posted to watch for a major resignation, and I can't remember what the breadcrumbs were exactly, but it was very clear he was talking about Eric Schmidt. He may have even used the initials ES, but it was an obvious lead that came through, and that was the biggest, most recent that I can think of. So I know there are others. I'll start trying to put those together too for the Trello board, because I think that's a legitimate question. And we're seeing, again, right after Eric Schmidt resigned, we're now seeing all these connections to both Russia and North Korea. So it's explaining a lot. And
it's very satisfying, because you don't get a bigger fish than Eric Schmidt in terms of the MSM. I mean, he's possibly the biggest fish there is.
Well, right? He also was involved. Do you remember? There are emails where he mapped out a plan to help Clinton with the election.
Right. And not only that, I've been seeing things where he actually won the election for Obama.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that's been instrumental in
picking the winners.
And picking the winners and working to make sure that they won, at least with Obama twice. Yeah. And
he sure tried with Hillary.
He failed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sure tried. Yeah. I mean, they were doing all kinds of nonsense with
the search results and stuff. Yep, they were completely manipulating.
The search results. Hillary. You put HRC, and she's like, is great.
Right. Yeah.
Best candidate is going to win. Already have transition team plans. Blah blah blah. And you don't see if you do HRC scandal.
Right. It won't even populate the word scandal.
It won't populate. Yeah. And if you go to what is it? DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo.
You put HRC scandals, and it's it's 50 different things, from stealing furniture and silverware as a first lady in the White House. I mean, this is the worst. This is the worst woman in history.
Yeah.
History. World history.
I agree. I would say she, may even top the list for men too. I mean, if you add it up, what she did in Libya and Syria, and if you took it all, Ukraine, and put it together, she may have outdone Hitler, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, listen, she is so horrendous and such a grotesque, like on every level, and you know, just the lies that come streaming out of her mouth. This woman can beat any lie detector the FBI can give because she's so pathological.
She believes it.
I remember I was just watching the Tim Russert interview where she's going on and on about how she was opposed to NAFTA, and he's reading quotes where it was
supporting,
giving it a ringing endorsement.
Yeah.
And then she's like, she just turns around on the dime. She's like, well, I don't think that's all the research that, you've done all the research on that. What are you talking about?
She's still denying. She's still denying having a role in Uranium One. She was on the board of CFIUS, which had to approve the deal. She was on the board, and she was accepting donations from Russian Uranium One investors at the time of the deal, totaling $150 million, which she did not declare as required. And one of those individuals—
That's found money.
That's what?
That's found money.
Yeah. And then one of the guys he pled to money laundering of bribes. It's like, okay, well, what about the people who paid and took the bribes? If you have enough of money, if you have enough evidence to convict him of laundering the bribe, then what about the people who, it just—
And how does Podesta get 70,000 some odd shares
of Jewel? Yeah.
Yeah. How does he get 77,000 shares?
That he transferred to his daughter or something.
It was worth like $30-something million. I mean, listen, it all stinks to high heaven, and then they can just lie.
Well, the Podestas
through their teeth about everything and smile while they do it, and they know that they're not going to get a really vicious follow-up from any astute journalists because none exist.
Right.
They're all on the payroll, right?
Yeah.
And it was get Hitlery in by hook or by crook, and we can all stick our snouts back in the trough for another 4 years. That was the plan. They got sabotaged. America won. The maniacs lost, and they can't deal with it.
Yeah. Well, you saw too. There were those emails. No, actually, there was the state. I don't know if it was in the WikiLeaks or not. I can't remember where I saw this, but the documentation around this Hillary signing an agreement with Facebook and paying Facebook $120,000 of taxpayer money to help her develop a winning campaign. This was while she was Secretary of State, using State Department resources. And then Podesta—
listen, the Clintons don't want to use any of their money ever.
But the idea, like,
yeah.
And then pretending like she didn't, that it was Trump that tried to rig the election. And then meanwhile, the Podestas, go to opensecrets.com and look up Podesta Group. They accepted lobbying money from Russian to lobby the State Department on behalf of Russia for Uranium One in 2012, 14, and 15, and never registered as a foreign agent until they got caught, and they did it retroactively as late as September of this year. And
it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I remember when Podesta went on Twitter and he said he went on Twitter and said to Trump, he goes, the Russians hacked our emails, sent them to you, and that's why you won. That's why you're the president or something. And I was like, listen, Pedo Pizza Boy. I replied like, first of all, it was Seth Rich that leaked the information, and it wasn't a hack. And what else did I say? I said something about how he's pathological in his lies. And the guy is just insane. They're actually running this whole thing that, you know what, the Russians are in collusion with WikiLeaks, And
now they're trying to say Jill Stein is
emails.
Yeah.
They released it, and they use WikiLeaks as a platform to release it on. It's all nonsense. You know, WikiLeaks is not a tool of the Russians, Hillary and Podesta. Get real.
Well, they've never even interviewed Julian Assange about.
No, it's disturbing that the bots and the Hitler terrorists just take this stuff and run with it.
Yeah.
There's, you know, they just take the Podesta Hitler lies and they run with it. Oh yeah, WikiLeaks is Russian. It's a Russian tool. Come on, man. I mean,
yeah.
Seriously, 11-year pristine record of never retracting a single story. They've been accurate on everything that they've ever published since their inception.
And look at mainstream media. Last year, the Washington Post had to retract two full retractions of stories about supposed Russian hacks. One of which was the Vermont electric grid. It was a complete farce. They never even called to ask if that, you know, if they'd been hacked. So within 6 weeks' time, they had to issue two full retractions, and then we saw over the course of a couple of weeks, what was his name? Got suspended for the month, and then Brian Ross for claiming that Flynn had that meeting during the campaign versus after the election when it was totally appropriate. And also when the communication between WikiLeaks and Donald Trump Jr. was after the WikiLeaks release, not before, which is how it was reported on the mainstream news. So,
because obviously the CIA runs the mainstream media, and they have their horse, which is the neoliberals. And you know what? I'm hoping that there's enough white hats in the CIA and the intelligence community to bring in the reins on these people. But I just don't know. I just think that the leadership, they're all corrupted. I mean, whether it's Brennan, Clapper,
Mattis,
McCabe, they're all rotten to the core.
And maybe Jared Kushner, is still. I think the jury's out on that guy.
And do you think Jared Kushner set up Flynn? You think this was a setup? I think that's possible. That he did this to, basically entrap Flynn so they could get rid of him.
Yeah. Because I think we've talked about the meeting. There was this covert meeting in May that Jared had arranged between Saudi Arabia's MBS, the Prince MBS, and then also Netanyahu in an effort to sort of reset Mideast relations. But as part of that discussion was supplying Saudi Arabia nuclear technology.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's the last thing we need. We need let's get rid of the nuclear proliferation altogether from the entire region, Israel included.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because once people realize where the source of the real problem is, and everything, all roads run through Israel. Israel is the problem. Israel is the aggressor. It's the one in violation of international law.
Well, we should be specific too.
It's the one outsourcing all its wars to the U.S. Thank you for that, by the way. And that's the issue. Well,
and I think it's also important to clarify, because I was accused of being anti-Semitic the other day, and I mean, I have a twin niece and nephew who are Jewish. I can't tell you how many cash gifts I've given in multiples of 8 at bar mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs. It's like, I'm not anti-Semitic. The issue is with Netanyahu and Israeli foreign policy. It's not about Jews. And as we discussed the other day, 10 million Jews have protested for 3 weeks now in Tel Aviv on Rothschild Boulevard against this policy of apartheid. I mean, it's not anti-Jew, it's anti-imperialism is what this is about.
I like to say, Judaism, yes; Zionism, no. And it's the oldest distraction and smear campaign in the book, and it doesn't work anymore. So stop doing it, people. When you put like something critical of Israel, and you get tagged as an anti-Semite, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. We're arguing with substantive issues that we have real problems with, and you can't hide behind the anti-Semitism slur. It doesn't work, and it's old and it's tired.
Yeah.
And people aren't intimidated by it anymore. So it's ineffectual.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful that we're getting there, but it's just one of those things that is so explosive. It's still such a problematic area, but.
So what are we going to look for in the next week, Trish, as we wrap this up? What time we have there, Myth?
We've gone over by about 20. Well, it took us a while to get going. So, you know, I'm hoping to see more developments with the whole sting operation, and I think we should have some good information by next week. But you know, the uranium one and all of that is still percolating under the surface, and there's a lot happening. I want to do some more research on those 13 named in the executive order for having their assets frozen, the Dan Gertler, and then also I forget, his last name is Shah. Shah is part of his name. He's Pakistani. He was also one of the people. So I'm going to dig into that a little bit more and hopefully have some information for people that will be, you know, helpful in understanding whether or not anything's actually happening.
All right, great. So we'll see everybody back here on Tuesday at noon.
Sounds good.
Have a wonderful New Year celebration, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday. See you later, Trish.
Sounds good. Bye, Albert.
All right. Bye-bye.